Thank you, Linda. I truly appreciate that. And I'm honored to be speaking to you all today. So thanks for inviting me. Really excited to see so many amazing leaders from all over joining us. No surprise when Linda puts something together, it's going to be great. So I am the founder of Lean In Michigan, which consists of approximately 100 circles across the state. However, it all started with launching my local circle for Lean in Lansing in 2015. And I had just moved back to Michigan after about a decade away. I didn't have a strong professional network in the area, which is part of the reason why I started the circle. And most of the other circle members were in similar situations of being new to the area or returning after a significant time away. So we very quickly became a tight support system for each other. And as many of you likely know, being part of a circle often leads to reevaluating your career and feeling more empowered to make changes that you desire. So after a while, some of the members started looking for new positions and asking me to be a reference for them, which I was happy to do. But it also sparked some conversations among the circle about many members not feeling like they had a strong reference from their current or previous work experiences, and that really our fellow circle members knew more about our strengths and our goals, and most importantly, wanted to see each other succeed. We wanted to be champions for each other. So this wasn't something that a lot of us had previously felt from coworkers, and we all decided to commit to being that reference network for each other. And near the end of 2015, we held a circle related to gender bias and performance reviews, particularly the type of language that is used in reviews and the types of feedback given. So some of you have probably heard about this before, but essentially women's reviews often contain really critical subjective feedback, as opposed to either positive feedback or critical objective feedback. And women's performance was more likely to be attributed to luck versus their skills or abilities. So if you're interested in learning more about this, there's lots of data out there, but I'm going to share a quick link in the chat box for you to look at later. It's an article from the Harvard Business Review that goes a little bit more in depth about the background on that. So for these two reasons, the need for peer champions and studies showing gender bias in reviews, in January 2016, I made a commitment to my circle to write a LinkedIn review for each member that year. And I very consciously decided to use words that were more often attributed to qualities of male leaders. And I did this because I wanted them to be armed with tangible proof that someone else saw in them what perhaps their coworkers and supervisors needed to be reminded of, and to hopefully influence the way potential employers viewed them. So sometimes this meant writing and rewriting multiple versions of the recommendation. I would literally change their name to a more traditionally male name and then read it back to myself. And if I felt that the recommendation read awkwardly when attributed to a man, then I reworked it until it felt like I was talking about a leader regardless of their gender. For example, positive attributes of men are more likely to be described as analytical, competent, dependable, confident. Women were more often said to be compassionate, enthusiastic, energetic, organized. So the problem is when we are conditioned to think of leaders and desired employees to have these more valuable traits that tend to be associated with men, this is where the gender bias starts to come in. And if we think these traits are male traits, and we're more likely to hire the male, right? So these are valuable people, and I wanted to use the valuable traits. And I'm going to share another Harvard Business Review article link that talks about the different words that are often used to describe male versus female leaders. And also a list that I found super helpful of 185 powerful verbs that will make your resume awesome. So there's a couple links in the chat box there for you. And I'll share one of the reviews with you as an example so you can kind of try to close your eyes and imagine it being about any leader, regardless of their gender. So Sarah's willingness to challenge group norms and provide fresh points of view make her an ideal peer mentor. She is always ready for a challenge and leads with confidence, while taking the time to research and ask important questions to ensure project success. She is a clear and direct communicator, analytical thinker, and dedicated team member. I most appreciate her drive, initiative, and work ethic in following through on commitments, and I would not hesitate in trusting her to lead and excel at any given task. Ultimately, there were two results to this endeavor. One, circle members were genuinely appreciative of having a solid recommendation that they could point to with their skills. I even had one member say she printed a copy of it and took it and shared it during a job interview. She got the job, yay. And the second thing that I really didn't plan for, but turned out to be really interesting, was how the process shaped how I viewed the members. Some of the recommendations were super easy to write. They were people in the group who naturally stood out by facilitating many of the meetings, volunteering for various roles, and who I felt I had a really good understanding of their skills and strengths. But there were other members who I wasn't quite sure of at first what to write, so I really spent some extra time observing them and how they contributed to the dynamics of the group. And I was able to gain a much better sense of the value that they brought to the table that I was likely overlooking before. So with this new insight, I started asking them to contribute in ways that highlighted their strengths better, which they appreciated. And it also gave them an opportunity to share their expertise and build experience. If you translate this to the work environment, if you are a supervisor and you are truly appreciating the strengths of your team members, or you are just seeing what's obvious, that's going to impact performance reviews and opportunities for growth and advancement. So if a promotion requires analytical and a supervisor keeps noting you're organized, this gender bias is going to lead to inequity in promotions. But that's all I have for you as far as what my little experiment was. I'm happy to take any questions. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, as I know a couple of you already have. However, I just want to note on that I get a lot of LinkedIn requests. So if you don't leave a little note in why you're connecting or how we met, I tend to ignore those. I really believe in not being a collector, but being a connector. So I'm happy to connect with you. Just let me know how we connected. Thanks.
Thank you, Laurie.
Linda, thank you so much for those kind words. I'm really, really touched by them, and I'll do my best to try and live up to them. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Barmacel. I'm based in Chicago, though my heart is in several different locations around the globe where we cannot currently travel. So I'm thrilled to be here today when Linda invited me. And the experiment that I'm talking about is a little bit of a newer initiative, and I intentionally call it an experiment because I went into this little test without any expectations, but really seeking to learn. So about a year ago, I started a new company with two co-founders, and I don't know if this resonates for anyone else on the call, but this is my second career. I am a recovering bureaucrat after spending a number of years working in government and politics, and once I really understood my identity as a builder and someone who loves to grow things from the ground up, I found my home in the world of startups. And maybe this is only my second career, and there's careers 3 and 4 around the bend, who knows, but I definitely treat my career like a design sprint. And what became true for me in starting this new company, I had been working in startups for a number of years, but that was largely in LA, and I was now back home in Chicago. And people who knew me closely knew what I did and knew that I excelled at it. But it was important for me as I started my new company to use my voice and for people to get used to hearing my voice in this new context. And I had a number of friends who work in personal branding, which is a phrase that maybe I don't love, but is one that's widely used. And you have a number of friends who have built careers helping women develop their brand. And a dear friend encouraged me to think about how I could better leverage LinkedIn. There are about 675 million monthly users on LinkedIn today. And a lot of experts describe LinkedIn as what Twitter was 10 years ago, really a place to supercharge your professional life and build an awareness of where your leadership lies. Of those 675 million people who are monthly users, it's estimated that about 3% are content creators. The rest are content consumers. scrolling the feed, seeing what articles are being shared, who has new jobs, things of that nature. So when you think about the opportunity that exists there, it's pretty significant. The LinkedIn algorithm works in a very interesting way. I'm sure we've all come across posts in our feed that seem like really incredible posts, and you see only 4 or 5 reactions, and you're like, huh, how did that happen? This seems like everyone should know about this. And then you see other posts that have got hundreds, if not thousands, of engagement and reactions on the post. And there's a number of factors that go into that, but the one that seemed like one I could immediately try and influence in my favor was early engagement. So when you put out a post, the LinkedIn algorithm prioritizes showing content in the feed, in other people's feed, if someone's engaged with it in the first hour that it's live on LinkedIn. So it's sometimes hard to get that rapid response. You can put something out in the world, and if no one catches it right away, that in that 1 hour, no matter how great the content, sometimes it's hard for your network to see it. I had participated in, I'm not certain how many people are familiar with the idea of pods for social media, but something that's used very heavily for Instagram, but less so for LinkedIn. So I thought, for women who are trying to build their professional identity, amplify their thought leadership, what if we could amplify each other's voices? And do that by committing to being kind of a rapid response squad for one another. And what we found was, through some trial and error, and having been invited to a number of different LinkedIn pods myself that were pretty male dominated and where conversation could sometimes get a bit toxic, was that people responded most quickly on WhatsApp, because it's a place in their mobile device where they're hanging out socially, where they might be spending more time than they are in LinkedIn. And LinkedIn groups have very low usage rate, in a way that, there was a little bit more traction with them a couple years ago, but they're very infrequently trafficked right now. So the best way to disseminate information for rapid response, we found, was WhatsApp. So I reached out to a number of incredible women in my life, including Linda, because when I think incredible women, I think Linda Brandt, and reached out to a number of other communities that I am a part of for female founders and people who work in the social impact space, and asked people if they were interested, gave some context around why LinkedIn is such a great place for women in particular to be building their professional brand and elevating their thought leadership, and asked people if they were interested to be part of this rapid response squad. We had about 125 women from around the world sign up. The majority are concentrated in the US, but we have people from Indonesia and India and the Philippines in the LinkedIn pod, which we call Ladies Leveraging LinkedIn. And we created a guide that was almost like a field guide around some LinkedIn best practices, some context around the LinkedIn algorithm, and then some norms for the group. It's easy for groups, especially groups of a significant size. They can sometimes turn spammy, or the original intent can be diluted. So we were very intentional in saying that this space is for rapid response to LinkedIn. It's not a place to sell. It's a place to amplify one another's voices. And it's been really incredible to see. This was an early COVID project for me, when we were all looking for projects to hang on to our sanity, which isn't so different from today. Me. And this was a project that I started in April. We have about 88 active members in the pod, and it's been really incredible. Everyone has stayed really focused on the mission of amplifying each other's voices on LinkedIn, and also asking active questions about how other people are benefiting from LinkedIn, what are different ways they can leverage LinkedIn beyond what we're doing in the pod. And there's also some element of community where we're now seeing women finding ways to collaborate with each other or appear on one another's podcasts or LinkedIn live channels. And it's really beautiful to see these connections being facilitated in a way that's truly about the dedication of amplifying one another's voices. I'm happy to drop a link for the guide in the chat. So feel free to peruse if there are questions that you have either about the guide or how we structured the group or the organizing. And yes, the pod is wide open. If you believe in amplifying other women's voices and want your voice amplified, I encourage everyone to come together in the space. There's a link to join. I'll drop a couple links for you in the chat here in a moment. And the one thing that I didn't mention that's something important for us to consider is we have access to our own networks. When you look on LinkedIn, it'll say, you know, Ellie has X number of contacts, and that's my first degree contacts. But when I get my first degree contacts engaging with my content, then it shows up in the feeds of their contacts. And the exponential factor there is incredible. So I'd also encourage folks, if you work in a very specific industry or are trying to gain a foothold in a specific industry, creating a LinkedIn pod that's also industry specific can be incredibly helpful. So for example, if you work in data analysis, if you create a LinkedIn pod for other data specialists and amplify one another, then you can elevate your voices in your industry as well. So we're industry agnostic. I just want to put that asterisk on that as I drop the information into the links, but everyone is welcome to join. And I hope I kept it under time, but thank you so much for giving me space to be with all of you this morning or evening, wherever you are in the world.